I want to start this video by admitting that I was wrong. And you don't hear that all the time, right? Listen, I grew up, and this is not a knock on my parents. I think my parents did a great job. But I grew up, you get in trouble, you get spanked. You do something wrong, you get spanked. And I know that we've kind of gotten away from that as a culture, and I'm not against spanking. So don't even get me started on the fact that some kids need to get whooped upside the butt in order to understand. But I think that it has to start a long time before that. And I learned a lot from my wife in regard to this. And our children, I've never actually spanked either one of them. My son's 5, my daughter's 3, and they've never done anything that actually would warrant that. What's happened in the past is one of the things that we've done, and I want to encourage you to do this, whether your kids are like perfect angels or they're like cray, it's not too late to start this one thing. And that is, when they do something, don't talk down to them. Get down on your knees and communicate with them. So get down and talk at their level. Talk with them, not at them. There's an entirely different scenario that's going to play out here when your children are looking you eye to eye. They're not looking at you, where are my eyes? Where are my eyes? I use this with kids in my office too, but where are my eyes? They look you in the eyes and you have a conversation with them. And the number one thing that you've got to start doing is asking them, do you recognize what you did wrong? Do you recognize what just happened? If they don't understand what they did wrong and you're just whooping it out of them, then it's not really getting anywhere anyways. And if they don't understand what they did wrong, they're going to do it again. But if you can get them to verbalize what they did wrong, and then you're bad, how can you do better? How could we do better in this situation? Let's say, Isaiah, this happens again next week. How could you do it differently? Next time your sister takes your crayons from you, instead of getting pissed and throwing them at her, what do you think would be the best thing to do? Good, great answer. And then I'm encouraging the positive response. He's like, well, I could go over and I could ask for him back. That would be awesome. She didn't take him to be, and then you rationalize the situation. Here's what really happened. You've got to give your kids a different perspective, because you get upset and you don't even look for a different perspective, and you're 40 something and they're like 6. So I need help sometimes understanding a different perspective on the situation, because if my wife or someone that I work with explains to me, well, this is the way that we saw it, or this is the way that I thought it happened, I'm like, oh, snap. That's not what I think. So if you can help your children understand what went wrong, how to look at it differently, and then what could be done differently, or how can we do it better? And this is the part where you get an opportunity to instruct as a parent and help them understand and grow and become better in whatever that situation was. And what you're going to see, I believe, is that when that same scenario plays out again, you may have to do this again and again and again. And some of you guys didn't create the good model in the beginning, so you have to go back and fix the broken pieces, right? But it's not your child's fault that you didn't discipline them properly in the beginning and you're cleaning up the mess now. So be patient with them, and that's not easier said than done. But what you'll see is, if you're repetitive with this process, get down on the level, communicate what happened, how can we do it better, let me instruct and teach and help you grow, then eventually that same scenario will not play out again. Your kids are going to be better and better and better. Now, I understand that there's different circumstances. They have a learning thing, a learning disability. They have a sensory disorder. They have, you fed them crappy food or a bunch of sugar and they're bouncing off the walls. I get it. There's different scenarios that play out, and this may not work out perfectly. Trust me, there are times when I thought that this process was a joke. I thought my wife was too lenient, and I thought that she was going to let our kids just walk all over us. Don't get me wrong. Like, coming from, you did something wrong, I'm going to whoop you, and then you'll learn your lesson. You want me to give you something to cry about, kind of thing, to this has been entirely different. But as I watch my children, they're getting it. They're developing through this, and they're very polite. They're very respectful. They're very caring. If they do something that shouldn't have been done, they recognize it right away. They're apologizing. They're fixing the situation. and it's virtually never happening again. And even though I come from spanking is okay, spanking's good, and I'm not saying it's not, because I'm not saying that my kids are never going to do something, look, we did this, you did it again, or it was way worse, or whatever. I'm not saying I'm not going to spank my children if the time comes when they deserve that, and it's really applicable and necessary for the situation. But so far, for 5 straight years, this has worked out really well. So I want to share that with you. Also, remember, take into account what your kids have experienced in the past. And some of you chase your children. And I see it all the time. You're chasing them. And then you yell at them. And it's like, you be quiet when I'm talking. You're telling them not to yell. Stop yelling! By yelling. You're telling them to sit still as you run after them. And so kids are a lot like dogs. And no offense to your kids, no offense to my kid, whatever. Kids are like dogs. My tone says a whole lot more than the words. And my tone, if I'm loving and I'm calm, I create a situation where a child or a dog wants to draw near to me. If I'm loud and yelling and abrasive and aggressive, kids are scared of that, right? Imagine someone like 3 times your size yelling at you, about ready to whoop you. I mean, you're going to run and you're going to cower away, and the last thing you're going to want to do is confront, communicate, and be in front of that person and solve the problem and figure out a solution. So just consider that the way you come across to your children might be the reason why they're so difficult to deal with, why they're not listening, and why it's not working.